All right, y'all, welcome to the show. We got a lot to get into. So in just a second, Jon Stewart, man, yet again, bringing the heat. He absolutely dismantled Democratic weakness and what it looks like they're about to do during the second Trump term. There's a lot to say about it. God damn it, I really wish this guy would run for president. We're trying. I'm bringing it up every single day. You got other people who seemingly have hopped on the bandwagon too, so we're doing our best here. We'll get to that. We'll also get to me reacting to my own appearance on Piers Morgan. Him and I got into a pretty feisty debate. Then I'll also get to Cenk Uygur blowing up on Alan Lichtman and his keys. That's a really funny clip. Morning Joe absolutely copes after cucking themselves to Trump and hemorrhaging their own fans. Elon Musk apparently had a massive blow up with Trump's staff. I'm telling you, man, start the clock. It's not going to be that long until they have a complete and utter falling out. And then also later on, Charles Barkley has a brutal reaction to Democrats losing to Trump yet again. So without any further ado, we'll dive into it. You guys know the drill. Everybody do me a big favor. Please subscribe to the channel. That helps out massively and costs you nothing at all. And thank you to everybody who supports this show on Patreon. We couldn't do it without you guys. We are actual independent media. We are not fake independent media. I am not taking any money from billionaires. I'm not doing any direct ad reads or talking to advertisers. I'm not taking any money from foreign governments like we learned with that whole tenant media fiasco. So we are largely dependent on you guys. We fund the show through you guys and the default ads on YouTube. So any bit helps. $2 a month makes a big difference. All right, let's go ahead and dive into it. So Jon Stewart, man, God, I'm so happy that he re-upped his contract to keep doing the Daily Show for at least another year because his voice is desperately needed. You honestly don't hear the takes that he gives anywhere else now at this point, not only in corporate media, but even in so-called independent media. You don't hear these takes. So he's going to break down what Trump is poised to do, what MAGA is poised to do, and how the Democrats are looking like they'll react to it. And man, is this scathing and this basically dead on. He hits the nail on the head here. Let's watch.
Even those putting up resistance to Trump's agenda don't seem to understand who they're dealing with.
Senator Elizabeth Warren accusing President-elect Donald Trump's transition team of breaking the law, as there are reports it missed a deadline to file a required ethics pledge.
Hear ye, hear ye! Hitler missed a reporting deadline! The war is over! I've said it before and I'll say it again. Republicans are playing chess and the Democrats are in the nurse's office because they glued their balls to their thigh. That is what is happening. The election that we just had was a repudiation of the status quo, an overly regulated system that is no longer responsive or delivering for the needs of the people or their beloved behatted squirrels. Oh, R.I.P. Peanut. Government is theoretically a constitutional system of checks and balances between equally powerful branches. But what government actually is an overly complicated Byzantine bureaucratic maze of rules, loopholes to those rules, and norms. Complex enough that A, if you want to find a rule that keeps you from doing something, you'll find it. And B, if you actually want to do something, you can find a loophole to get around said rule. And then the norms are just how often you've had to pull any of this shit. For example, Trump's, let's be generous, provocative and unorthodox cabinet picks. I don't think Hulk Hogan's been nominated yet. I think he's going to be the secretary of Take Your Vitamins! Democrats are positive that the vaunted constitutional rules of the Senate shall be the guardrail to this madness.
Certainly we can fight back.
The president nominates, the Senate confirms.
We're a check and balance. We're there to be a guardrail.
The Senate has a constitutional obligation to advise and consent on this nomination.
Oh, shit. You want Matt Gaetz, Mr. President? Prepare to be advice and consented, biatch. There is no way for the Constitution to allow you to get past it.
The Constitution does give the president power to adjourn the House and Senate on extraordinary occasions.
To unilaterally install his most controversial nominees and bypass the Senate confirmation process entirely.
That is our government in a nutshell. The rules say we can stop it. The loophole says that. And so what are you left with? The last refuge of losers, the norms.
I don't think that's appropriate, and I don't think that's what the founders intended.
That is not the custom.
Yeah, you can do it, and it's legal, but whatever, guy.
We're literally talking about a guy who openly tried to overturn the last election. He did the fake elector slates. We had January 6th. He was twisting Mike Pence's arm to reject the results of the election. The idea that you can lean on norms and customs and decorum in order to reel this guy in is absurd. It's absurd. And it feels like it all the time, right? Whenever the Republicans propose something, the mindset is like, well, I'm sure they're going to find a way to get this thing through. Whenever the Democrats propose something, the thought process is, well, I'm sure other Democrats are going to find a way to whittle this down about 85%, and then maybe we'll get 15% of it. So, I mean, that's the reality, right? And that explains how we ended up where we are with this current rotten, decrepit system.
We're going to think you're a dick. Republicans exploit the loopholes. Democrats complain about the norms over and over and over, and it has ghastly consequences. Remember when President Obama nominated Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court? Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell refused to give that a vote, saying, well, it's only one full year before the election. It's too close. Now, you could make a case that Obama could violate the norm, say the Senate failed their advice and consent, and appoint him anyway, and see whatever the happens. Fight. But they just went, well, we never heard of that rule, but, okay. Smash cut 2 months before a presidential election. Trump nominates Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court after the completely unforeseeable death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And as you can imagine, the Democrats went right to the nearby Kinkos.
Behind me is the McConnell rule. On February 13th, 2016, when Justice Scalia passed away, Senator McConnell said, and I quote, "This vacancy should not be filled until we have a new president."
And so Amy Coney Barrett was forced to head back to her homestead, never to be heard from a... Oh, they didn't give a... Oh, right, I forgot. They didn't give a... Look, let this show be the utterly ineffective hypocrisy finders. I can tell you from experience, it does nothing. You guys be the loophole guys that figure out how to get shit done, because they don't give a about your norms. They will exploit any loophole, even if they have to go through clearly closed windows to do it.
I mean, look, he's laying it out, right? Politics is a power game. That's what it is. It's about power. And Republicans, when they get their power, they use it to their maximum ability, however they can. When Democrats get power, they handcuff themselves and say, what about the rules and the norms and the decorum and what the founders intended about how to get something through? It's what we've been dealing with certainly my entire life following politics. And as we pointed out, the results of it are absolutely catastrophic.
You would think after Trump's presidency, Democrats would have learned. But they doubled down. When Biden tried to get immigration reform into the Inflation Reduction Act and the Senate parliamentarian told him he couldn't, did he respond to the rule with a loophole, or did he?
That's for the parliamentarian to decide, though, not for Joe Biden to decide.
That's literally insane. That's insane. Because we have other examples from recent history. George W. Bush tried to get something through. The parliamentarian said no. Republicans fired the parliamentarian and brought in a new one who said yes. This is an unelected advisory role. So then it looks like, wait, do you guys just pawn it off to the parliamentarian, but secretly you don't agree with some of the proposals you're putting in your own legislation? Because that's certainly one way of viewing the situation. And that would be the worst scenario, right? It's like they're being helpless because that's their role. They are the paid losers. Now, that's also kind of conspiratorial, right? But at the same time, it's hard, when you look at the situation, it's hard to come to other conclusions because of how the Republicans act. So with Trump, he might just put in RFK as the acting head of Health and Human Services, right? He might just put in Matt Gaetz as the acting attorney general. So, he's not technically the attorney general, but he's the acting one. He hasn't been approved yet, but he's still in the position. This is what he did at the end of his last term when people were mass resigning over his insanity. This is the acting attorney general, right? So he could do that. He could do a recess appointment, and he's probably gonna, do all these things unless we get lucky in the sense that there's some Republicans who insist, no, we're not going to do it that way. But, how much are they going to push back on Trump when in their minds he just won with this massive mandate, and the lesson for the past decade in Republican politics is never disagree with Trump, even 1%. I mean, we're at the whims of other MAGA Republicans. How insane is that?
No! That's for, you take the parliamentarian and you put them in a locker and then you bring Grimace in and have him. That's what you do. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Perhaps a demonstration is in order. To get anything done, the Democrats feel like they must thread the needle to make sure, we have to make sure each norm follows the overly complex bureaucratic process that we created ourselves. The parliamentarian, I can't do it because the norm says, I can't get anything done. Meanwhile, the Republicans come in and all they have to do is finger bang a donut. That's all they have to do. How are we going to get Matt Gaetz in if the advice and consent? There it is, right there. Boom, boom, there he's in there. Now he's in.
I mean, he's right. Look, the reason why this is so important, this isn't just about the political landscape as it is. The reason this is so important is because if Democrats were more willing to do the stuff that Republicans are willing to do to get their agenda through, we would be looking at a very different situation right now. If you could only change one thing and have it flip the outcome of the election, I honestly think the answer is getting the original Build Back Better passed. If that got passed, we're talking about a bill that has paid family leave, child care, universal pre-K, free community college, expanded Medicare, higher minimum wage. It lowered all prescription drug prices, not just some of them, and the expanded child tax credit. If you got that through, that would have materially just absolutely changed the world of the majority of the electorate. It would have been the biggest transformation of our economy since the New Deal. That is a game changer. So if you got that through and people felt like, well, wow, the Democrats really delivered for us here, then my guess is you'd see what you saw in the FDR era, which is FDR won the presidency 4 times. Democrats had 80% of the House and 80% of the Senate at FDR's peak, because people will feel like, oh, wow, government actually could work for us. This is wild. Now, this isn't to say they didn't do any good things. Of course, they did some good things economically, but getting the original Build Back Better through would have seriously been a game changer. It's way above and beyond anything else. But here's the problem. You had the Democrats literally leaned on the parliamentarian on some of those things, and the parliamentarian, you cannot put the higher minimum wage in there. And it's like, okay, well, you're shooting yourself in the foot electorally for the next election on top of materially hurting a massive number of people by not raising the minimum wage. So they said, hey, what are we going to do? The parliamentarian said it. And then the other thing is, when you look at people in their own caucus, 2 people really were the downfall of Build Back Better. It was Kyrsten Sinema and it was Joe Manchin at different times on different issues. If Biden could have found a way to twist their arms effectively to get them to vote for this piece of Democratic legislation, then again, it would be a totally different scenario today, and I don't think Donald Trump would have won. But they didn't. What happened is they raised a stink and a fuss, and basically Biden was like, okay, we'll drop whatever you want to drop from this, we'll drop. And you even had insane stories coming out, like Kyrsten Sinema takes hundreds of thousands of dollars or $1 million from the pharmaceutical industry, and then she flips on lowering the price of all prescription drugs. On that one, even Manchin was okay with lowering more prescription drug prices. And it was Kyrsten Sinema who took a tremendous bribe and then flipped and said, I only want to lower some prescription drug prices. But again, if Biden knew how to play politics, if Biden learned the history of LBJ, for example, or FDR, and realized what they did when they hit roadblocks, we'd be in a very different scenario right now. But instead, he laid on the ground in a chalk outline of himself. And now, unfortunately, the takeaway for many Democrats after Kamala lost is maybe we did too much. Maybe the Inflation Reduction Act was too much, not too little. Maybe we should have embraced austerity more. This is going to be their takeaway for many of them. And that is the exact wrong takeaway, because that functionally is Democrats saying we should just act more like Republicans in order to get elected. Well, as we've learned time and time again, if voters have a choice between Republican and Republican light, they usually go with the Republican, the original Republican. Happened with John Kerry in 2004, for example. So, I mean, he's right. He's right about all of it. He's right about all of it. And this is why I keep saying this guy's got to run for president, because he understands the political landscape better than anybody else. He understands what the real issues are. He also has had a real world impact on so many people. He's helped get, healthcare through for the 9/11 first responders. And they hit a roadblock. They hit a bunch of roadblocks when they were doing that. And he had to do a public pressure campaign, and even Fox News hopped in on his side in that public pressure campaign, and eventually he won. I need somebody to bring that mindset to the White House for the forces of good, right? But instead, it's usually the Republicans and the forces of evil that are willing to exploit the loopholes. And it's the Democrats who are always going to default to, hey, it was built like this for a reason, and we need to follow the proper process and procedure. And it's just a dead ideology. You're in a street fight with both hands tied behind your back, and you're trying to kick the Republicans into submission. If the Republicans are going to be insistent on saying, hey, all the rules and the norms, they literally are just suggestions, and we're going to find a way to do our agenda regardless, well then, you have to mirror that. Because if you don't, then it's going to, in perpetuity, we're going to have a situation where Republicans run roughshod over Democrats, and Democrats lay on the ground and accept it. And that gets us absolute catastrophe, as we witnessed time and time and time again. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.